Okay, I'm starting to get it. So there can only ever be 21 million. There's
21
zero
million coins
now.
total. Yeah.
But whatever you peg in pegs out of Bitcoin. So there's no inflation here of coins either, which is cool.
Of course,
It
yes.
just allows you to have additional technology that can do other things.
Yes. This is quite a big difference. Like, I think the better way, it must be easier. Maybe people can imagine a world where you have even, like today, you would have someone go on stage, someone like a Safety or something. They go on stage and they say Vitalik is the devil and we all hate Vitalik or whatever. But in a parallel world with sidechains, you would imagine that history would just play out differently, and the same person would go on stage and they would say, for the same exact actual idea, they would say, oh, Bitcoin has all the best technology. We have this wonder kid, Vitalik. He's doing Turing complete sidechain on Bitcoin or whatever. Or, the Jeremy Rubin thing would be completely different also. There would be no controversy about that. He would just go and they would say, we're not ready for this right now. He would just do it on a different piece of software. And no one would even be taught. This problem wouldn't even exist.
Yeah.
The problem of how to coordinate the
really
soft or hard forks or any kind of other activation.
Because really sometimes they're worried about like inflation of total coins across all protocols, right? Like just keep us all in Bitcoin.
Well, I mean, that's why I think it's a no-brainer that's why the sidechain idea was so good, I think.
I wouldn't say no-brainer.
Yeah.
There's another thing we'll come back to because we can talk about some of the, there are obviously downsides. We can talk through that. Just help me understand, how does this sidechain get its security? Because the miners provide the security to Bitcoin. How do they provide the security to does this sidechain just inherit the security?
Well, this is the idea. Yeah, it does. But this is the idea of merge mining, which I think is also understood by a very, very, very small number of people.
Are you basically sharing the cryptographic proof?
Well, this is the thing is the mining, like it's debatable if there is any cryptographic proof, like in mining. Like mining is this is one of the things I remember Adam Back telling me, like when he first heard about Bitcoin, he was confused because, well, maybe this is a minute detail, but the hash rate security is the cost of like the 51% attack, more or less. And normally in cryptography, they're like these unbreakable black and white situations, where it's like it can never be broken by anyone. If all the corporations and governments of the world combined, they would not be able to crack the decrypt the message or whatever, right? Or it's like very easy to do. So it's black and white. But with mining, it's this spectrum. When mining first started, there's only a few people, so the hash rate security was pretty low, and now it's more. Maybe in the future it'll be even more. Maybe it'll be something else. But whatever the way merge mining is, you kind of fit the sidechain block into a regular main chain block, and it kind of goes along for the ride.
Oh, does that mean it uses up block space?
Well, it uses a tiny amount, but this is where the analogy breaks down completely, because the sidechain block is referenced in the main chain in a little tiny spot, but the actual block itself is somewhere else.
Right. Okay. So it gets.
So I use a tiny, tiny, tiny amount of space to say like sidechain number 4, like this hash of the block, and like maybe a couple other things.
Yeah. So it does inherit the security then of the main chain. When
the sidechain node is running, it must look, like I said before, like if you run our software or the Z-side software, if it can't find the layer 1 Bitcoin node, it just won't do anything, because it's going to use that to figure out how many blocks there are, like what time it is, stuff like that. Like if it's Saturday at 11:30, it's going to get all that from main chain Bitcoin. So it's sort of riding along. But this idea is very misunderstood. One notable fact about it is that in merge mining, which Satoshi invented merge mining in 2010 for Namecoin. It's a very old idea, and we've been doing it ever since. It's another thing people don't realize, that this is a very old idea that has been in continuous use. But an intriguing fact about it is you don't modify the main chain to allow this. In fact, the main chain cannot stop an unlimited number of chains from being merge mined with it. There's nothing Bitcoin can do to even stop this from happening. And instead, you modify the the chain that's riding along, the parasite chain or the friend chain or whatever you want to call it.
If we ignore that everything but Bitcoin is a shitcoin argument for a moment and just say, look, there's different scales of altcoin, right? Which I would say are different levels of credibility. Now, for some people, they're all shit, right? There's other people that they're not. And when you get the people who are not, they would say, well, Ethereum has clearly proven its, forget all the issues with its scale, whatever. Ethereum has kind of proved the case that there are things that people want to do on Ethereum. Whether you agree with it or not, it does. Monero has proved a case. Zcash hasn't really got much adoption, but it's a different technology that does something different. Like there's a handful there you could say that are doing something more interesting than the other 20,000 bullshit ones. It feels like these ones would be the kind of ones that would be elevated into this, and the bullshit 20,000 other ones just wouldn't even bother trying. They wouldn't survive. They would die. And I think
yes, precisely.
I think one of the things, Danny, run through my logic here, that you wouldn't be able to price speculate on these coins because their price matches Bitcoin.
Yes, exactly. It would be like putting $20 into an ATM and getting $20 in your checking account. It would just be like the same thing.
So there's no incentive to put shitcoins on here.
Yeah, it kind of would filter out all the shit, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, somewhat, that's what a lot of people think. I mean, I think that would be like 99% the case at least.
Yeah, it would because you're not, and it's not going to last if no one uses it.
Exactly, and you don't have any, you have to have a real appeal. That's exactly right as well, is that if no one uses it, there just like won't be coins over there and then it will just die
But
off.
it would increase demand for the coins in the ecosystem, which itself would drive up the price anyway.
Yes,
that's my logic.
Yes,
that sounds right to me. The thing that I can't get my head around is if you were making a project and you were a bit of a shitcoiner, the incentive is to go and shitcoin because you're going to make way more money.
Depends who you are.
Yeah,
if you're a shitcoiner, if you're a developer, let's class these people differently. A shitcoiner for me is somebody who wants to profit off the coin.
Yeah,
and that's their primary motivation. If you're a developer, your primary motivation is to build cool shit. And this gets rid of all that incentive model. It also makes Bitcoin more usable. We're going to have to come back to why people are rejecting this. But for me, to get rid of that price incentive on shitcoins makes it a lot more interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot more developer focused.
And I think we have to keep in mind how many people who are today the sort of good altcoiners were like ardent Bitcoiners like in the past. Like, I mean, Vitalik was like the Bitcoin Magazine co-founder and writer. He was like the original Peter McCormack in a way because he was the Bitcoin Magazine
We're
guy.
very similar.
And and he was like a full Bitcoiner for a while, and then he tried his thing on a lot of this story is disputed, but certain things that are not really disputed at all, which is that he was a Bitcoiner. He did Bitcoin Magazine. He proposed this idea in Bitcoin, then he was going to do it on some weird altcoin, and then he made his own project. And that project was, I think people are biased against Ethereum because it was really a terrible project in 2015 when it was being put together, and it was terrible. And I think it really has evolved slowly. It's like
so terrible.
It was kind of like 1% better every year, like every day, that type of thing. Have you seen that meme?
Yeah.
And so then when you get to that years later, it kind of evolves. It's like a Darwinian evolution.
Okay, so in your most objective way possible, what are the most valid criticisms of this? Which you might not want to do, and if you don't want to do, I'll go and speak to somebody else. But
I think, I think it's, I'm like in favor of, I think it's perfectly fair game for you to get the criticisms from the critics, right, and not from me.
Well, where are you getting pushback?
Well, people give me the miners can steal critique, but then I say that I think very few of those people really understand the whole 3 to 6 month thing, like what is actually required. But also, miners can already steal from the Lightning Network, for example, by blocking the Justice transaction. So they can already do that. But no one complains about that in the Lightning Network. And so when I tell people that, they usually kind of like just shrug and go away. The more important thing with that is, though, that is something that the user has opted into. Like the user chooses to run. Like remember the reckless meme with Lightning? Yeah, the user chooses to do this. And certainly back in 2015 when I came up with the idea, lot of the large blocker group. There's another group like Roger Ver was, an ardent Bitcoiner, and then there's Bitcoin Cash. So another like example, but many of the large blocker people have said consistently their entire lives that they are fully okay with what they call the SPV level of validation. This is maybe an esoteric topic that a lot of people don't know about. This is a section in Sztorc's white paper about you only have the headers, and you mostly it's sometimes called trust the miners. That's like, how it is when something's shrunk to a little tagline, you lose all the important nuance. But it's basically,
but all that nuance is in the main block anyway.
Sorry, what did you mean?
So SPV means you're only carrying the headers of the block.
Headers. The headers are only 80 bytes each. It's 4 megabytes a year. So it's very easy to get those. They prove all the work, but they don't prove the validity of the block. That is why later on, when the sidechain idea was invented, the name SPV proof came from that.
How is
idea.
the validity of the block proven?
There's no other way than to download every message and check that every message follows all the rules.